I think one of the things we've seen in Georgia lately is, unfortunately, we've had suicides of people who identify as queer youth or people who don't. We've had, major silences around transgender youth in schools. And so I think not only in Georgia, but we're trying to figure out just in the U.S. how to best support transgender youth.
The wide misconceptions that teachers have about transgender youth or just transgender issues in general. There's still it's still quite common for teachers or educators to confuse sexual orientation or gender identity. Often school board members are a bit reluctant because they automatically think of issues about dress code and issues about the bathroom.
We can say we need to have open minds, that we need to have an open heart, and we also need to be very real about some of the, hatred, fear, and violence that exist as well. And that's why I think truly if we're going to get good at supporting these youth, we have to get good at being allies. It can't go on this way anymore.
Well, I went in early to take a math test, and basically, this guy grabs me by the back of my jacket and pulls me into the bathroom and beats the crap out of me because he thought that I was hitting on his girlfriend. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know who your girlfriend is. I don't care. And he just beat the crap out of me, but they caught him on camera. So, he apparently wasn't that smart. It was pretty sweet getting him expelled. But I think it was a really good thing, though, that the school did react really quickly. And I think they had, the completely appropriate response, which was to expel him. That's crap. If you did that outside of high school and you weren't a minor, you would be in jail, hopefully. It's called a hate crime. Hello. But I think they definitely sent the right message with what they did.
A situation I could recall is it was a group of kids. It was a bunch of guys, and my good friend, he was fairly feminine, very feminine, very, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that at all, and they would go back and forth. But at one point we were on our way home, and they jumped him. Nobody was around for that, and we come back to school and it's he's beat up. That was one of those things that was damn, but nothing happened. Nothing never happened in school. That's the crazy part. The most I ever had to do was I ever got into was an argument with anybody. I thought I might have to fight because I wanted to dress the way I wanted to, and I wasn't gonna take crap anymore. I was about to curse.
I guess the first problem from me being trans that came up, it wasn't even directed at me. I don't always notice how other people are perceiving me. I don't really pay attention much to that. But apparently they had taken notice of my being trans for a while because changes from hormones and stuff. So the first thing that happened really was actually my brother started getting harassed because of me. So his friends were like, "Hey Henry, what's going on?" And he, like I said, it was hard for him to handle it at the time. Because he had a lot of other stuff going on too. So it really made him upset and kind of angry about it. The other thing I remember was when I graduated, when I go get my diploma, they call your name, you walk up there, you get your diploma, and you walk down back to where everybody else is sitting. While I was walking back down, some kids just "Hey, why are you turning into a girl?" Just yelled it at me, and I'm just really? Because I couldn't see who said it, and I kind of I don't know, I was just kind of well, why didn't you say that to my face? Because I totally would have explained it to you. You asked me a question. So you don't ask a question if you don't want to answer. Maybe you're not going to understand it, but I'd feel better if I said something about it.
Absolutely, bathrooms can be a really scary place for transgender students, and often many transgender students will not go to the bathroom the entire day when they're at school because it is such a scary place. So it's important for schools to have bathrooms that are gender neutral, where these students can feel safe, even if it's just the nurse's office, just somewhere that these youth can go to use the bathroom. Once educators are aware of what's going on, if they're aware of the statistics and the challenges faced by transgender youth, they really do start taking those steps to do something, and that's what happened to me.
Also ask them how they verbalize about themselves, if they assert any, different name than maybe what they were assigned, or maybe if they assert different pronouns or different sex than they were assigned at birth. We try to get them to think more about the language that's assigned to their bodies and their identities, because that is the single most alterable factor in gender, if you think about it. One resource that I would suggest for anybody who wants to know more about being a trans ally, particularly in the school environment, is Bending the Mold. This is a publication put out by Lambda Legal, and there's a glossary in here of least restrictive terms. In addition, there are resources on the Georgia Safe Schools Coalition website.
Students learn at a very early age that they only have two options, and I think that's a huge problem in schools, and I think it's very limiting for our youth, and so we need to really advocate for gender complex education in the classrooms.
First of all, they can actually talk about it. Like, nobody ever said anything about, like, I don't know, like, we had meetings about being tolerant of, like, other racial groups and things like that, but, like, nobody ever even talked about, queer people at all. And so people didn't really know what to think, or, like, but, I mean, I guess that's why I'm lucky that people reacted really positively. So they were just like, oh, that's kind of weird, but okay, that's cool. But, no, I mean, I guess they could just have, like, better programs and be more aware and make sure that the students are aware. But that also requires the students to be really active too, like, and actually, like, be out and let people know who they are. They could not tell kids that they don't know what they're talking about. Like, that's just silly. It's like, why would I be here if I wasn't serious? Like, that was really my biggest issue, is just getting people to take you seriously, because people don't take kids seriously, like, especially even in high school. Like, you're definitely not quite an adult, but you're old enough to know what you're talking about.
If there's a way to not teach kids the gender power system, I don't know how you could do that in anywhere on Earth today. I don't know how you could. Like, for my brother to not be harassed, for me not to be asked those weird questions, you would have to have a belief system where gender isn't constructed, so they wouldn't wonder when I was in class, like, well, why you always cross, like, your legs? Why you always sitting like a girl? Doesn't that hurt? I'm just like, no. If you ever tried to cross your legs while sitting down, it's not a problem. And there's people, like those are some things, like, they would say, and I feel like if people knew there were options to this whole gender thing, like, it wouldn't suck so much. Just talking about it, probably in sex ed would be a great place to talk about stuff like this, because, if we're going to talk about how babies are made, then we could also talk about how, like, it's supposed to be sex ed, and sex doesn't have to be penis vagina, it could be all sorts of things. So I think that would be a good place to talk about the LGBTQ community. Being
allowed to play sports, not having to undress in front of girls, it was it's everything that I went through, but on the other side of the fence. the kids at the school, we're young, so the staff sets the tone and, you know, how things are supposed to be, and they follow that, regardless of how the school is. It's because of the staff. And there's a reason why, you know, some schools, it's really strict, and the students follow that. There's not a lot. Things do go on outside of school, but inside of school, where you spend 9 hours out the day, or however long you spend out the day, you should be able to be safe. You shouldn't have to worry about going from class to class, somebody bothering you, and teachers just letting that happen. It would be cool, like, if the student body, or some people want to have a GSA, a Gay Straight Alliance, in their school, I think it shouldn't be, especially in a public school, I don't think it should be any issues at all. Because clubs are for the student body, and if there is a need for it, and there are people who want it, they should have it, so that you can embrace the diversity of the student body, opposed to alienating groups of people just because they're not in the mainstream.
I think it's important for educators to know that they're protected by the law. I mean, you know, their job is to protect all students, and there is legislation out there that protects transgender students. If you look at Title IX, for instance, if you look at the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, if you look at the First Amendment, all of those things protect transgender students in schools. And then when it comes to forming a gay straight alliance, or if you want to be more inclusive, a queer straight alliance, there is the Federal Equal Access Act, which also protects educators as sponsors if they choose to sponsor the group.
The best thing would be to support. If there is a transgender youth at your school and they want to express that and be themselves, I think they should be allowed to do that, and the staff should support that.
I think one of the things that's been important to all three of us is we have participated in advocacy and activism around transgender, queer, and questioning issues. I know, Corey, you've done that on the University of Georgia's campus. I work a lot with transgender youth, you know, between the ages of 10 and 24. So I bring that perspective, and I know, SJ, you've been working in the community for a while running a support group.
And what I think is amazing about that is we have a social responsibility. You and I were talking in the hallway that if the youth are going to stand up for themselves, then we need adult role models to do that. And what better people than people in the school system where the youth interact with them every day. Collective memory work is participatory action research. It invites the participants in to share their stories so that we keep their stories at the center of the conversation as opposed to at the margins where many of their lives have been up to this point. And it says, share with us your positive and negative experiences so that we can respond, so that we can understand, so we can act on your behalf. And you can act and are empowered by participating in the process. And I think that's what we have really valued about collective memory work. And it's something you can do in your own school. If you decided that you wanted to see what the climate was in your school, engage in a participatory action research model like collective memory work. Ask youth to write about positive and negative memories that have occurred in your school system and take a look at what that data shows. And then take action.
And I love that you introduced us to this research methodology because it is connected to action. It takes the stories that have happened. They're not fictions. These are real stories, and uses them to make change. And so I like what you're saying about it can be easily adopted into any school, even as a part of coursework, and really getting interested in what are the experiences of folks in schools.
This is where we are in the world today. People need to understand that we exist. We're here. We've been here a long time. If you look back in the history, the her story, and the T story, there's always been people like us.